Welcome to another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It.
Well, hi there. It's Matthew Blades, speaker, leadership coach, and former broadcaster. And this is the show that is all about what happens when we learn from life. And we bring in guests every day who have these incredible stories. And today we're lucky because it's a conversation we need to have around money. And so Scarlett, the Biz Hippie, joins us today, and we're going to talk about our relationship with money, good, bad, and ugly. But I want to start, Scarlett, by asking you, where do we usually develop our relationship with money? Because I'm guessing that the way that we think about money in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s is foundational to the way that we learned about money.
Oh, absolutely. And this is such an important question because so often I find that people are not looking at their relationship with money. They're often just focused on the amount of money that they have and how they feel about money. But the truth is we all have a relationship with money, and this relationship can be shifted and changed. It is not just inherently true or accurate. And so our relationship with money, the way that I like to describe that is it's our thoughts about money, how we feel about money, and how we use our money. And those three things really make up the foundation of our relationship with our money. And we develop these foundational beliefs and thoughts around money from our childhood. You see, there's moments in time where we experience things. These could be described as like small traumas or maybe even large traumas where we learn foundational beliefs about ourselves, the world, and money. This could be as simple as like money doesn't grow on trees, money causes people to fight, it's evil or bad. Even when money comes in, it's going to go away, so you can't trust it. Those are just like a handful of examples, but those develop our foundational money story, our foundational money relationship. And if we don't bring awareness to our relationship with money, we can continue to just play out this story and this narrative for the rest of our lives.
Scarlett, I want to ask you if you're open to it, and I want to share mine with you. But what is your relationship to money? Is there a story that you've had to overcome in your life?
Oh, absolutely. Big time. So I grew up with a single mom. We did not have a lot of money. And so, but at the same time, the story that I really took away from that was one of resiliency and maybe even a little bit of self-righteousness, where I learned that it was actually good to be poor. It made you humble. It made you work hard.
Mm,
People who
mm,
had a lot of money, like had the golden spoon in their mouth and they were, spoiled and they didn't know how to fight or they weren't as good as me. So that was kind of my story around money. But then this also bled into the actions that I took as a child of trying to work hard and be a perfectionist, straight A student, type A high achiever. So when I was a young adult, I was managing restaurants by the time I was 18. I had a 3.9 GPA, getting my bachelor's in business management, accounting, and finance. I was checking all the successful financial boxes. So many people looked at me and thought, like, Scarlett has a great relationship with money. She's so responsible. But all of that was coming from a place of not being good enough, being not having enough, not being good enough, and needing to check these boxes and be more successful to prove my worth and to arrive at some finish line that told me I had finally made enough. And so for me, I had to change my relationship with money to no longer let money control my life and no longer let money be the determining factor of my worth. And instead, I had to create the life that I actually wanted to live without money or success being the driving factor. And that was really my biggest money transformation.
It sounds like a huge transformation. And to the folks who have just joined us today, we're on with Scarlett, the Biz Hippie, and she is on today to talk about breaking free from money controlling your life. And in fact, if you want to hit that QR code on the top left, she's got a quiz that you can take that'll kind of give you an understanding of your relationship with money. I'll share my story in just a second, but how did you jump that hurdle? What was it that you had to, because I don't think it's as much about learning something new as it is about unlearning something.
Totally. I completely agree. And I think really the first step was recognizing that I even had this relationship with money in the first place and recognizing how it was detrimental, because the truth was that I was doing everything right. I was checking a lot of success boxes. But on the inside, I was burnt out, unfulfilled, depressed, covered in head to toe eczema, had constant weekly migraines. I was in a toxic relationship I had no business being in, and eventually I hit a really harsh rock bottom where I realized that I had been waiting for my life to start. I had been hoping to cross some magic finish line that said, okay, you did it. Now you can start living the life you want to live. And because of that, I had really set aside who I was and what I wanted and what was important to me in my own mental health and self care. And I really needed that rock bottom to wake me up and realize that something was wrong, that it didn't matter if I was doing the right things financially, that this was not healthy and that I couldn't continue to live this way. So I needed that hard smack on the ground to realize that life was already happening and that I was the one living it, and that it was up to me to be the one in control of my money and in control of my life instead of it being in control of me. And that's when I started to discover, well, who am I? What's important to me? If money wasn't an issue and I wasn't worried about reaching a certain level of success, then what do I actually care about and what kind of life do I want to be living? And then it was a practice of actively choosing that every single day, even when it was hard or scary, or I didn't know how it was going to work out, or it felt like I was literally going against the grain of society and my friends and family in so many ways.
Okay. So many questions that I want to ask you. I want to share briefly my journey with money because I'm curious to get your take on it. I, like so many people, grew up in a very blue collar, small town in the Midwest, and we weren't poor, but we were definitely not middle class or rich. There was no extras for anything, and so I grew up my whole life always being told no. And if we wanted something, like, we had to go get it ourselves. And I'm not complaining. I think there's a lot of value that came from that upbringing. And, getting my first job at 14 to start being able to afford the jeans I wanted, the shoes I want, and some of these things. And then what happened was I got into my radio and television career. And to your point, I figured out who I was and I figured out what I loved, and the money just started flowing. And, I eventually built myself up to a stage where I did really well. I didn't need anything. I didn't want anything. All our bills were paid. We were saving tons of money. We were investing. We took trips. It was a good life that we kind of designed for ourselves. But 4.5 years ago, I made the decision to walk away right in the middle of my radio contract. Scarlett, you and I don't know each other, so I'll give you that bit of information. But I walked away right in the middle of the contract and literally walked away from probably $1 million. And just because I needed to start something new. I needed to try something new. As I tell everybody all the time, I want to stay behind this microphone, but I want to decide what I say moving forward. And I want to use different words, and I want to be encouraging now. I want to help people understand where their blind spots might be as it relates to communication. But back to the money conversation. So now I find myself back in this interesting place where money's a little bit tighter now than it was or has been for the last 20 years. And it's almost like I have this conversation of like, well, you're good at not having a lot of money, so you're fine in this space. And it's funny because I don't want to be like, I don't want to be good in that space. I don't want to be like, well, I don't have money and that's okay because I'm good at not having much money. I want to be able to say yes to things. I want to be able to do more. And so, what do you say to a guy like me who's been there, done that, and doing it again? Is it because I seem to have forgotten what it took to get there in the first place?
Totally. And I think this is such a valuable journey that you're sharing, because this is often what I talk about with my clients all the time, because specifically I find myself working with people who are doing what you did, which is starting a business, trying to walk a new path and do something that you're really passionate about, even if it means leaving behind the comforts and the stability of the traditional path and the finances that come with it. And it can be a really hard, uncomfortable, and scary journey, especially when we are not able to quite reach that same financial threshold, that we did before. And I think there's a couple factors here. One is I noticed, especially with my clients, your relationship with money changes when you're in more of a stable job versus when you are an entrepreneur. Because when you are the entrepreneur, you're basically putting yourself on the line and you're saying, I am the value, I am the service that I am offering. And so you can really easily receive and attract a lot of money into your life in a job context because you're receiving that external form of validation that tells you, yes, you're good enough, here's your paycheck. But there's a deeper level of self-worth associated with being able to attract higher and higher levels of money when you are the service that you are providing and you are putting all of the work and effort into receiving that money. And so that's a mindset shift that I notice a lot of the entrepreneurs that I work with dealing with. And then I think the other component is that I am a strong believer that we create the situations that we are living in and that it comes from our own internal mindset patterning, like our beliefs of what we're capable of, deserving of. And often we can keep ourselves capped at a certain income threshold, even if we consciously desire more. Subconsciously, there are parts within us that keep us safe within a certain comfort zone. And I noticed that this can impact the kinds of actions that we take, how we think about money, how we think about our work, and therefore it impacts the flow of money in our lives, especially as business owners.
Interesting. So what are you sharing with people? How are you helping folks jump that hurdle? Because I've had this conversation with a couple of different people. I mentioned before we started taping, Ken Honda's been on this show, and he's a brilliant businessman and has just done so good with, so well with money in his life. And we had a big conversation about this because to me, I think the thing that trips people up is there is this line between being reckless and being like, I'm in abundance and it's going to be just fine and I don't have to worry. And so tackle that. What is that line of reckless versus I'm in abundance and I'm not worried about it?
Yeah. And I'm glad that you bring this up because I think this is the battle that a lot of people are dealing with. And it's so funny because this is really what my quiz gets to the root of is where on that line do you fall and how do you come to that balanced place in the middle? And I think that there's a couple components when I work with my clients to address this specifically. One is the internal work of uncovering what is your current relationship with money? What are your thoughts and your beliefs and what's the overarching story about yourself, the world, and money? And therefore, how are you creating this life that you are living over and over again based on these foundational money beliefs that might not be an accurate picture of reality? And we need to unwind some of that first so that this no longer has a hold on how you're living your life and your perspective around money. But then on the flip side of that, we need to get tangible, right? Because we need both the internal work and the tangible work. And so I am a strong believer in managing, tracking, and being strategic and intentional with your finances, because being able to see your money very clearly, knowing exactly how much you have, where it's going, where it's coming in from, that fills in the gaps where normally most money stress comes from uncertainty and not having a clear picture of how much money you have. So all those stories and beliefs that you have about money, they're just running the show all the time, especially when you actually don't know how much money you have and how much is available to you. So when we learn how to see our money very clearly, it actually can feel very, very empowering, because now instead of having an emotional relationship with money based on these old stories, we can build a solid relationship with money based on an accurate picture of reality. And we can use that accurate picture of reality to fuel and shift the mindset. And then it becomes about making conscious, intentional decisions with your money, knowing that, yeah, you might not have enough right now to say yes to everything, but that is not what abundance is. Abundance is about being in control of your money and being in control of your life. knowing what is most important to you and really wielding your money as a powerful tool to choose those things. My favorite example of this is if you knew you only had 24 hours to live, you would be so intentional with every single one of those hours of that day. And if anything, that would be the best day ever because you have the restrictions and limitations of the 24 hours. So you are intentional with it. Versus if you had all the time in the world, you're probably going to waste a lot of time on things that aren't really that important to you and aren't really that meaningful to you. It's the same with your money. If you only have $100 to spend, how can you intentionally choose what is most important to you with every single dollar?
Great. So for the last few minutes that we have with you today, Scarlett, and just a reminder for the people that have just joined us, that QR code in the top left will take you to the quiz that she was just talking about so you can get some clarity around your money. What are some good marching orders? What's a good call to action for people who are here? I don't think there's a single person that clicked on this because they're like, oh, my relationship with money's great. I don't need these people. I'm guessing that people hit this link because they were like, look, money does control me and I need to break free from it. So give us a couple of like great tips or calls to action, things that we can start to do like today.
Yeah, I think that the first piece and the most essential piece is starting to bring awareness to your current relationship with money because most
Okay.
of us walk around just believing these things to be true. And like a fish swimming in water, we can't see the water that we're swimming in, we just accept it. And so notice, how do you feel when you check your bank account? What are the thoughts that go through your mind? What are the types of things that you say yes to spending money on and why? What are the things you say no to and why? How do you feel when someone tries to give you money? How do you rate? Just notice like what are the foundational thoughts and beliefs and stories that you have around money and self-worth? And then once you can start to see this clearly, you can start to question, is this true? Is this accurate? Are these beliefs that I have around what is possible real? Or are there any examples in my life of people not living this way or where this might not be true? So I'd say that's one tangible step. And then the second tangible step is starting to get comfortable with seeing your money very clearly and being able to emotionally regulate yourself within that. I think commonly we, especially if we have stress around money, want to avoid our money and not look at it and just pretend like it doesn't exist and hope that the problem's going to go away. But if you are experiencing this, then what you need to do is actually go into that storm. You need to start to look at your money and practice taking deep breaths and reminding yourself that you're safe and that things are going to be okay. So you can develop a healthy relationship with money where you can see what is actually going on based on the reality of your finances.
One last question that I might ask you. Are you familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Mm-hmm.
You ever
Yeah.
learned about that? Okay. And so I'm thinking about that, that pyramid right now. And, look, if money is so tight right now that it's hard to pay bills, that it's hard to eat, that it's hard to get any kind of extras, like you're barely getting by, as I know so many people are right now. Is it as simple as they just need to make more money, or do you think that they could learn to change their relationship with money and start to attract it? What is your time as a money coach shown you about that piece?
Yeah, this is a really important question. If you're really struggling with money, like, yes, having more money can really change things for you. But simply having more is not really the answer because the truth is you can make more and more and more money and still feel exactly the same way that you feel now. Abundance is not an amount of money, it's a way of being. I've also seen the
Mm.
flip side of this coin where you can have very little money and still feel a sense of safety and enoughness and abundance. And it's actually very possible for you to activate that now. So I'm not saying like don't get more money. Of course, work towards getting more money, but actually first working on your relationship with money, learning to feel this sense of enoughness now and feeling stable and safe with your finances. That creates enoughness now and then opens up the door for more to flow in.
That's fantastic. Such a good conversation today. And thank you, Scarlett, for dropping by to chat with us for a little bit. She's got a podcast of her own. She's got a website of her own and a quiz of her own. And that QR code will take you to that quiz so you can start to look into what your relationship is with money. Last question for you, Scarlett, is what is best case scenario in terms of relationships with money? What is the best case scenario?
Yeah, I like to look at the relationship with money as a pyramid, or more like a ladder. So the first rung on that ladder is a sense of safety. You feel like you have enough and everything is okay no matter what, even when life is happening and there's fluctuations in life. Then above that is a sense of satisfaction. Like, I am good, I am okay. I have enough and I am enough. And then above that on the rung of the ladder is abundance. And that is, I am free. So it's this internal sense of being enough, having enough, and being able to live the life that you want to live without money holding you back, but instead money actually being the tool to help you create and live your most abundant life.
Fantastic. Thanks to everybody for watching this week and this entire series. It's been fantastic. We started on Monday with Dr. Anna Marie and had Coco with us on Tuesday, and Dave was amazing Thursday. Of course, yesterday's show was very heartfelt and meaningful. And today on Feel Good Friday, we got a dose of knowledge from Scarlett, the Biz Hippie, on our relationship with money. Don't forget to like and subscribe this channel. It's brand new, and we're looking to grow. As I mentioned with Scarlett before we started taping, this has been an audio-only podcast for the first 4 years of its life, and we've just now taken it to YouTube. And so we would definitely appreciate your like, your share, your subscriptions, and anybody that you'd like to send this along to, make sure that you do. Scarlett, I hope you have a great weekend. I know you're in the Boston area, so this is probably a dumb question, but who are you rooting for in the Super Bowl?
Well, I'm not a huge Super Bowl fan, but I suppose I have to say the Patriots just because legally I'm obliged to based off of where I live. So
based on proximity, you are.
Yes.
All right, good stuff. Well, good luck to your team, even though I'm cheering for the Seahawks. So we'll see how this whole thing shakes out. Yeah.
Great.
All right, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you again, Scarlett.